appreciate it. As you recall, our firm, I'm Brent Ogg, the principal of BHI Management Consulting, and Kristen Lee Swenson is here, and she's the consultant. John Courtney from Verde Design, district staff, John Houghton, from Assistant General Manager there, and Brockwood.
He went to go make some coffee.
Okay, he went to go make coffee or coffee?
Coffees.
Coffee, sorry, I've got this cold thing and flying, and you get prayers that don't work anymore. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate it. You know, we're working through a process. We're going to try to create the future for Parks and Rec in Rosamond, and how that should look, if it should look any way at all. And so we're going to, certainly we know what we've got, we know what we talked about last time, a lot of you. I'll do a quick review for you. But it's a process for defining the future. And that's what's important. So the outcome of these meetings is if it improves, it'll be because the community could get behind something at some level that was sustainable for a long period of time. So we'll review the status a little bit. We'll look at what some of the options are, and then we'll discuss the process of how you are a part of it. The board of directors is intent, hence that's why we're here, on trying to find out what the public wants to do with Parks and Recreation. We've all talked about it last time, we talked about it this time, that nothing will happen if something doesn't change in terms of the funding stream. That being said, you want to fund the right things. You want to put before, if the funding has to change because of a vote of the people, then you want to put the right things in front of the people so that they are voting on the actual amenities that they can get behind. And so you're part of that whole process of change, potentially. It could be that the vote goes down. And then, as we discussed before, the board has said if the vote goes down, we can't support it any longer. And that's not meant to be a threat, that's just meant to be a fact. And so that's what the board has said, but the board has said, let's go out and find out if we can find a set of amenities that is what I call supportable in the community. And so you're really a part of that, and naturally we wish the room was full and we wish we had lots of people, but we're really glad that you're here. And so you have a big say in your community tonight. There are 3 meetings as part of this public outreach. Prior to September 6th meeting, which was a couple weeks ago, we did a pretty broad appeal to the community, and we have ever since, to try to get people in the door, to try to get people interested in this, and understand what it's rolling up to and what it could mean for the community. Tonight, we're going to, and what we did last time is we looked at the kind of the broader set. So what kinds of things should be on the list for just root level definition. And what we did is we took that list and we gave it to John, and John created these things. And these things are kind of the no BS cost of doing a way of, for instance, a dog park, or a way of doing a 6-acre park, or a way of doing an amphitheater. And here's the general cost. Now, these are conservative estimates. It's really important not to tell you it's going to cost $500,000 when something's really going to cost $1 million. We need to call it what it is and kind of give it conservative estimates. John's designed and worked with communities to build parks and amenities before. So this is pretty good data. It doesn't have to be your data. It doesn't have to be your specific design. It's just a design representing what the cost of one of the elements we talked about last week might cost. And so as we do the breakouts tonight, you'll consider the different layers of how Parks and Rec could move forward with these costs in mind. And then, so after tonight, we're bound to get a few more ideas. We'll do a little more of this. We will now, no doubt, we'll get more specificity in terms of what might work or what might not, in terms of the baseline case, which is just kind of take what you've got and improve it. That's what this table is going to be. And you can get up and move around after, before we start. This table is going to consider, take what you've got and enhance it and support it at an enhanced level. And this table over here is going to be, go over above that. Now, we don't know where that line, remember the magic supportable line is? How much is the community of Rosamond really willing to support, if anything? And it could be that, it's just this baseline level, which might cost X amount of dollars per year. It could be that it's this level, that enhanced level, which would be more. Obviously, it just costs more, and that's why we've got this data. And it could be that we could even reach beyond just what we've got in terms of West Park and some others, and open a new park as well. Or it could be just that. And see, the options are broad, right? So it's really important that we try to understand, if we do that, if we consider the whole, the baseline, the enhanced baseline, and perhaps more, what at least the general level of cost would be. And if it went to the voters, what would they be asking for? How much would that level be? And what's sustainable, what's supportable? And so we're going to talk about more of that. We're going to have another company called NBS who does that kind of thing, who basically says, look, if you're going to put something before the voters, it's going to have to be, you have these options. There's a parcel tax, and there's a number of different kinds of assessment models. They understand those models, they understand the processes, they understand all the rules of those, and so they'll be here to discuss those relative to that magic level. So then we'll hopefully at that last meeting, as a group, we'll be able to decide, here's what we think is supportable. With generally these elements, and again, group, you may decide it's nothing. You don't want to support, it's not supportable at all. But if you decide there's something up here, and we believe or we understand that the board has said that the current benefit assessment district, the county assessment district, will go away if this comes on. So the 1,000 people, let me get to the next. So the 1,000 people that are paying today would not be paying that, but they'd be paying just like everyone else in the service area. They'd be paying a fixed amount. Everybody'd be paying the same. So how much is that? What's the supportable, the sustainable amount? But the district will keep an amenity it can't support. And right now, it can't keep, for instance, it can't keep the pool open at the amount of money that they get a year, this year. So this process means, again, to hear from you regarding the pool park, the West Park and Williford Pool, whatever, that area, and possibly doing more. Remember, only 13% of the community is paying for that now, and that raises $112,000 a year. The true cost is $270,000 a year. So the baseline case is just supporting that. So there, in the past, there have been some polls that have said the community is ready to begin improving and maintaining parks. So that's what this is about, and we're presuming that we're at least going through the process of deciding that. At a public meeting in June, those attending eventually got to the point where they said, let the public decide, which is always the right decision for a decision-making group like your board of directors. If we can, let the public decide, because that's the good democratic process. The board has said the same thing, but they want your input. So they said the same thing as the public, let the public decide, but they want your input. That's what this is about. They've also said that they discussed some boundaries, and we talked about the boundaries. In other words, please group, don't come back to us with things we know we can't support. So let's just go beyond that, and then we'll have some of that discussion tonight. Let's not set the bar so high that it's just a non-starter. So at the September 6th meeting, we went through a selection and prioritization process, and so that's where we're at now, and we took those that list that we all created during that meeting, and John spent hours and hours of time detailing that out. So again, we looked at the top level funding and discussed the gaps in current maintenance and identifiable projects that have potential as supportable. Completed that prioritization, as it said. So there are several existing park sites now. As you know, Lindauer, United, Williford. There's a Fellside property which is up in next to the water treatment. Thank you. Up next to the water treatment plant. And then there's some property next to the district offices here. So these improvements at West Park and renovation, you've got to add in the maintenance cost as well. And so in any kind of improvement that you do, or anything that you own, you have to maintain it. And so there's a built-in cost to anything that gets supported or built, and that's really important to understand. A good example is the cost of even the minimal maintenance, and we've all dealt with that, even the minimal maintenance at West Park, at Williford. Even that costs more than one might imagine, and so it's that $270,000. But any new site improvements will have the added cost of the site readiness. So if we decided, let's go beyond West Park and let's open a new site, let's open one of these other sites, there's kind of a function of, wow, we've got to get this property ready for development. And so when you look at like develop a 6-acre park, it's expensive, but part of the reason is because it's just bare ground now. You have to get irrigation to it, you've got to get sometimes curb and gutter and sidewalk and things like that, things that are going to be required. And so there's a cost before you even put a blade of grass into place. And so, but that's okay, that may still meet the criteria of what the cost would be. Remember, it all gets down to what the cost would be per year for those paying an assessment by whatever method. If it's a parcel tax every year on your tax bill, there'd be another, I don't know, guess $100. So if that were the case, and everybody would pay $100, and there'd be that much money to be able to do these things. And it might be that whatever set of amenities we come up with could be supported by that. And there are limitations, and that we talked about. That's the limitation I'm talking about. That fiscal limitation, that rate sensitivity of the community. You know, how much is going to be enough or too much. Talked about all these things. We talked about the baseline cost here. That would be largely a guess. For instance, this could be a baseline model. It's not the baseline model, but it could be 100K one-time cost for rehab of a park, then the proper operation of it, and then the proper maintenance. So that collectively would be the cost, perhaps, of the baseline here. Anything new on top of that would cost more. So with that, I'll give it over to John, and he'll talk to you about the numbers that he developed.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to show of hands, who was at the workshop we had a month or 2 weeks ago? Okay. So you guys will remember a lot of things that I'm going to say right now. For the rest of you who weren't at that workshop, this is really just a review so that you can be caught up to speed. This list is the prioritization. Remember when we were sticking dots up on the wall, up on the wall here? So for those of you who weren't here, all these amenities, we had pictures and we had descriptions of all these things, and we actually even opened it up to other discussion. And then we put them all up on the wall and took input from everybody, and they were given a packet of stickers so that they could put what they felt were the priorities for the community from their opinion. This is the list. And so the most frequently responded item is at the top of the list, and that's A. And the least frequently responded, I think it might have had one. And actually, I think the bottom ones, the amphitheater and the hiking trail both, I think had one, maybe two. And the one A had like 14, so you can see the range there. But what we did is we spent a lot of time looking at what it means to build in terms of cost and in terms of maintenance, the things that you had ideas about. And this is what is represented on this slide. And this is the same data is on all three of the walls here. So you don't have to like write it down, you don't have to memorize it, you can get up and look at it. We're going to put you to work today. We're actually going to do 3 small group working sessions that we're going to rotate, so everybody has an opportunity to do all 3 of them. So we're going to focus on different concepts here, and I'll describe that in a minute. But what you need to do is consider what prevailing wage costs, real world costs are to develop an amenity. And so the repairs at Willowford Park and Pool, that's kind of what we're going to focus on at this table here. And there's a list of those repairs. I'll show you what they are. I've been out to the site, I've seen it, I know what is old and what's sort of, needs to be refreshed so that you have, a nice serviceable park. And it's almost $700,000 worth of repairs when you pay an engineer, you pay, you get a bid contractor, you throw a contingency in there in case, change orders happen. You go get permits from the county. You talk to the health inspector, that costs money. So the list is basically, there's problems with the pool deck. There's weeds growing up in those joints there. There's some cracks in some of the quadrants of the pool deck. So the idea would be to break those sections up, pour new concrete so that everything is clean and neat and it meets the code. And then replaster the pool. That's something that needs to be done pretty soon. You can see stains on the side of the walls. There's, you've seen it, you know what it looks like. And this is common. You're every few years, you do have to replaster a pool. It's just the function of having and owning and operating a pool. The tennis courts and the basketball courts need to be resurfaced just so people can play on them, because the ball will act kind of weird out there right now. There's cracks and the surface is chipping away, peeling away. So it's time to repair those things. And then irrigation and landscape planting repairs because of the broken water main. There's some repairs that can be done as part of that, and really just general repairs. So the total for that is $600,000. And I want you guys to, if you think there's something else out there that really needs to be added to the list, this would be the table at which to talk about that. So the rest of the list, a pump track for bikes. Does anybody know what that is, or anybody not know what that is? Basically, it's a dirt or a concrete series of hills and jumps and fun stuff for any age person, mainly kids, but any age person, to ride a bike on, or even a skateboard or a scooter, wheeled devices. And typically not motorized wheeled devices, although you could say, all right, on Friday night from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock at night, they'll be motorized. This is the time to do it, but you're not going to do it the rest of the week, that kind of thing. But those are really cool, very popular right now, and they're relatively affordable to build, although it's still $1.7 million. But that gets you your restrooms, it gets you the pump track, it gets you all the things that you need on a raw piece of property. Because so far we haven't really seen any renovation in any areas of existing park sites that can fit. This is a pretty big facility. Covered picnic area, though, that's pretty affordable. And the design for that would be a canopy with posts that's about 30 by 30, and you could fit 7 picnic tables under it. And you'd have barbecue grills there, and a drinking fountain. So all those things will be included in that budget. Okay. An outdoor exercise course, those are very popular and very affordable. It still takes a little bit of money to maintain it, though. You've got to clean it, you got to repair it when it gets broken. You got to sock money away for replacing it after 30 or 40 years. So that's what that number represents, is the cost to take care of it long term. Okay, does everybody get that? Kids' playground is pretty expensive, but because of the new California safety playground requirements, it has to be completely ADA accessible, and there are a lot of requirements on it. So it's a pretty big piece of equipment, but a lot of exciting stuff for kids to do on a playground. The water spray park is pretty expensive, but that gets you basically a concrete deck with jets in the deck and overhead tumbling buckets and things like that. You see these things out there probably. But the water doesn't, it's not a wading pool. The water goes back into the deck, into a holding tank, and you recirculate it. So it's very efficient. It doesn't use a whole lot of power. It doesn't use a whole lot of chemicals. It's a much more affordable way for kids to play in the water other than having a swimming pool, which is very expensive. But you can't learn how to swim in a splash pad. So there are values that you have to consider when you're thinking, oh, we could do that instead of the pool. Yeah, you could. But where would people learn how to swim if you didn't have a pool? So those are things you should think about. The dog park, that represents about a 2-acre dog park, about $1.5 million to build a dog park. That has all the amenities that you would see in a dog park. The exercise stations where the dogs are, all the fencing. There'll be 3 separate, basically, yards for different sized dogs and different, activity, rates, basically, of dogs. And then concrete pad areas, benches for people to sit, just hang out while the dogs are doing their thing. Some trees, drinking fountain for the dogs, drinking fountain for the humans, and the waste stations and all that stuff. Softball field is a full-blown, a full-blown softball field with anything that you would need. I mean, it's going to be a nice softball field. My take on it is, if you're going to build a softball field, build it for the leagues to play at, make it a nice softball field, and actually dedicate it and do it right. So it's kind of expensive, but that includes shade over dugouts. It includes, again, drinking fountains, restroom, all the amenities that you need at a field. A paintball park, that number also again represents having a bathroom there, having a concession stand like a snack shack, because paintball is almost like you actually have to start making some revenue on something like that, so you can take care of it and actually have somebody working there to take care of it, make sure that it's safe and people are acting properly. And so that number represents about a 3-acre paintball field. By the way, at that table, in the packets that are on the wall back there, I actually have a design template that shows the site plan of all these amenities. So when you're at that table, you'll be cutting up these these templates, and you'll see, okay, there's a label on it, so you can see what a paintball area looks like. And so you can, if you want to put that on the design, on the plan, you can tape it down and find a place for it. But that amenity, the paintball, represents like 100 parking stalls. So it's a full-blown facility, standalone facility. But it could go in a community park. Moving to the park area, that's fairly affordable. It represents all the equipment and everything you would need to do that, in a nice in one area, those kinds of things. And then the Stars in the Park basically is a program to operate that. You need another employee, and so that's really kind of how that fits into this menu of choices. A lot of these facilities would need another employee in the district, and we just use $100,000 as a placeholder for that. That includes all fully burdened benefits and everything, in the public sector. Do you have a question?
Why is the community center so much?
Because it would be a 20,000 square foot community center. Yeah. And it would have a kitchen in it, and it would be a place where you get any kind of community meeting in it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Keep in mind, these are just one design. It's just, if you committed as a community to a community center, it could be a 10,000 square foot
That's right,
community center.
that's
It could be a rehab building somewhere else that you have an opportunity site.
Yeah.
But for the sake of this discussion, if you want a full-blown community center, well, this is about how much it would cost.
Yeah.
So that's what these are. These are numbers that just,
Yeah.
like the dog park, it could be a 1 acre.
Right. Yeah,
Those
I
kinds
mean, we have a pair of scissors here, we could cut it in half and say,
Yeah.
we like the community center idea, but make it a lot smaller.
Yeah.
What that would mean is, it might not be able to have a yoga studio or a dance studio in it, you know, you just have some community rooms, kind of like this one. You'd have to make those value judgments later on, but it's possible to do that. It's possible to do that on a lot of these things. So don't think that it has to look just like this on the template. Okay, moving along, so that's what this number represents here. Basically, it's just simple math. You're adding, you know, the splash pad and the shade canopy to it. But if you want to, you can actually at this table. This table is the goal at this table is to kind of think long-term expansion possibilities for Williford Park. So this might be the appropriate table to think about that concept. And then, you know, and again, there's a price tag on the template so you can see how much the cost for it is. And if you think you want to cut it in half, like we were saying, you know, take a pair of scissors, cut it, and then rewrite on there what the number should be. And I'll help you out with that. I don't expect you to be an engineer. But we do need to have sort of a common frame of working together. And then there was also a concept of putting an all-weather, all-year-round enclosure over Williford Pool. And so that represents, you know, metal poles and kind of like a tensile structure, you know, not fabric, but like Kevlar roof, basically, over the pool, so you can use it year-round. And then the neighborhood park, that basically, that $3 million is what it takes to get green grass and get a real basic playground and irrigation and all the site development on a 5-acre piece of property. And then for community park, you know, it's basically, you know, a little more than double for a community park. And then, so when you start adding all the amenities into it, we make the price tag bigger. But that's basically what it takes to build parks these days. And then the community center, as you mentioned, you know, that's a big number because it's a 20,000 square foot building. But, you know, you got to start somewhere. We can shrink it down, we can make it bigger. And then the hiking trail, this is the cost for 1 mile of hiking trail. And this is actually a multi-use trail, so it will be bikes, hiking, you know, walking, that kind of thing, running, all those things. So you basically would have 10 feet of asphalt, 10 feet of decomposed granite, and so it would be maintainable. It would be a nice trail through wherever park or, you know, connecting neighborhoods together. And then the amphitheater, it's kind of a smallish amphitheater, but basically a stage area and then concrete seats and you know, grass panels. And then, you know, you could have concerts, you could have, you know, performances out in the park. And we'd have landscaping around it, maybe some windbreaks, those kinds of things. So that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully I kind of summarized, okay, you know, suitably what we did at the first workshop. Does that make sense? So,
Let me just say, sure, there's a couple of things. What's important to understand, and I don't want to presume that you do, these are one-time costs to develop what we call amenities, whether it's a park or a course or a track. These are really important to pay attention to because those are going to be what it takes to take care of it. It's going to be annual cost every year, and so the part of the deal we've seen here, and you all experience every day, is that we really need to take care of, if we're going to build something, let's take care of it and make it and keep it nice and keep it maintained. And so we built that in. Again, we try to be conservative in what it would take to take care of it. But let's not propose something we can't take care of. I mean, just look at the cost of maintaining a paintball park, or here's a good one, a water spray park, $45,000 a year. That's an estimate, but as opposed to a covered picnic area, which is $8,000, but it still costs something every year to take care of it. Otherwise, it falls into disrepair and it ends up not being what you eventually. It doesn't take long for it not to. But look at the cost of getting a pool and keeping that park. You know, we know that. Those are almost data. Those aren't. That's not a speculation anymore. Pools are always just so. They're wonderful. We all love pools. We all love water features, but they're just expensive to take care of. Keep that in mind as you plan. Now, another thing to keep in mind as you plan is this one right here. If you'd like for the district to offer programs, for instance, they put a wall in this room and they offered some sort of senior programs or youth programs in the summer or something like that, and they use this part of the room for that. It would cost the district some money to have someone to plan all that, someone to conduct all that, someone to make sure that it always happens and things get set up and taken down. And so that's what, this is just kind of a placeholder for a person. It may not cost $100,000, but when you fully load all the costs into an employee these days, it's very expensive. But if we want to have programs too, amenities and programs, then you kind of have to build that in as well. And again, remember we said right from the get-go, again, we want to try to look at all of it so that no one's surprised by it at the end. We don't want any surprises. We really want to be able to talk it through. And one of those is programming. Programming is important, but it does cost money. So I wanted to just point out those two things.
Yeah, and then also I want you to use your imagination too. The reason we're doing this is because it's for the quality of life in the community, right? We're going to get your input. We did a workshop 2 weeks ago, this one, and then we're going to do one in another 2 weeks. That'll hopefully be a summary of all of this. But it takes money, obviously. And so you all are aware of what it takes to keep that open. So, we work in a lot of communities where the population of the community wants some things. They realize that it costs money and they have to pay for them. And a lot of times they're willing to pay for it because they know it's an improvement in the quality of life and in the property values. There'll be something for the kids to do, and even adults too. So a lot of communities will actually vote for a bond measure. They'll basically tax themselves so that they get a benefit out of it. And that's kind of what, using kind of the imagination piece of this. So I want to throw out a couple of numbers just for you to think about. There's 7,200 homes in the district, 7,200 parcels, right, give or take. So if you were to say try to float a bond for let's say $10 million, it would probably end up costing somewhere in the $80 to $120 per year per parcel to fund a $10 million bond. Now, a $10 million bond would then pay for $10 million worth of construction and maintenance money. Does that make sense? So if you want to think of it this way, you could look at this list and you could say, theoretically, if you thought that $100 a year is kind of an affordable threshold for families to want to pay. I mean, $100 a year, that's less than $10 a month, right? I mean, it's not that much money. A couple of trips to Starbucks, right? And from that, you'll be able to spend $10 million to build projects and then maintain them. So if you want to do the math, and if you want to do an exercise at these tables of going through this list and kind of making value judgments and say, okay, if I was going to think about $10 million, if you think that's a reasonable amount, $100 a year, per household for 20 years, you could say, all right, we'll look at this list, we'll pick a few things off of it, and we'll use the construction number and the maintenance number so that both things are funded. And then, like I said before, the O&M cost Obviously, after 20 years, you know, this thing sunsets, and there's no more money after that. But if you built in enough money, so you're building up a reserve to be able to maintain that after the 20-year cycle. So, does that make sense? You got everybody kind of with me so far on that? Okay.
I think that there's a huge portion of money being lost, and correct me if I'm wrong, like if you go to a park and then you see that there's like a shed, and then there's, you know, little four-wheelers or lawnmowers or whatever, and it's being maintained by a Parks and Recs city facility, but then what's happening here is that everything's getting contracted out, and there's really a park and rec, and the people are coming with their lawnmowers and they're bringing, and all this is being contracted out, and I think that whatever we build in the future, or whatever's even there now, it should be really whose responsibility is what's here, and then for the future, whatever the community wants, it should be more of a city, you know, rather than contracting every little thing out, something more inside already, like every day they get paid to do that one thing.
Well, the trick is making sure the budget is right,
Yeah.
and then the district can figure out if it makes more sense to
But the
contract
city,
for
rather
it.
than the housing tract. You know
The
what I'm
overall, the
saying?
district, the overall
Yeah,
district.
in this case, it's the
Because
district.
the housing tract is taking it all and, you know, and really giving the whole community the only thing that we have. I mean, there's two things. We have the park over for the school is maintaining that, well, and then the situation that we're in now with the pool, which is really over like twice as much. Like if it was half that over, it would be shocking, but twice it's so high, it's like, oh, we're in peril, you know? That's a lot to go back and pay, not to even build something in the future, we have to go back and pay what's already there. And so that it just gets me thinking, like, who contracts all these little things out when it could just be one entity that's doing it, a service for Rosamond?
John, these O&M costs presume an internal maintenance.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It could be either way. I
It
actually,
includes a number,
Yeah.
not specific.
it's a very comparable cost. It's a value judgment. You know, you can contract out. A lot of cities and a lot of districts do exactly that. They contract out the maintenance because sometimes it's more affordable to contract out the maintenance because, you know, it's basically you go out to bid on it, so you have all the contractors bidding against each other to try to, you know, they're gonna try to do it for the lowest amount that they think is reasonable for it, and so you're gonna get a competitive bid on it, and you know, so it's a very affordable way to maintain facilities, but the money has to be there one way or the other.
You know, we got Kern County Parks, they got Glendower.
Right.
Southern Kern Schools got United, that park. Then you got a water district that has this park, okay? Then you got Hummel Hall, which is a community center basically, already in existence. And then we have property on Diamond Street, do we not, John? And we got property on, what, 20th Street? The old water building? Yep. I mean, we got a lot of shake and bake here, you know? We got to join together. You know? And you got a Chamber of Commerce that's building an amphitheater on Diamond, or I mean, Pot Street or whatever we call it now. You know, Solar Way.
Event center?
You know?
Yeah, right.
So there's a lot to be considered here, not just West Park.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in this property up here on Fellside, is that the square that's right there bordered and all the housing tracks?
Yep.
How would those people feel about having bicycles going up and down right behind their houses? I don't think they'd like it. I mean, look at how the kids trashed the other bike park we had on the corner.
What's that?
Remember how the kids always trashed that place? They never probably ever picked up a blade of trash.
Well, and that might be reason not to,
Right.
for you to say, no, we shouldn't do that. It might be designed in a different way. And again, there are options here,
Exactly.
and so that's a good thing to have, that you have options.
Right.
And so that's, so
I'm gonna turn it over to Kristen.
There's another question right there.
On your annual cost,
Yes.
did you do that based on, say, you were talking about different things, maintenance after 5 years that has to be done, or something else after 10 years? So did you do that as an average over 10 years, 20 years? How did you do that?
Yes, we looked at what it takes to maintain it at an appropriate level. And then we also added in extra money for what we call wear and tear and replacement, basically, life cycle cost of it. So the number that's represented there represents that, so that you have enough money allocated. So when we're doing this exercise, you have enough money allocated, not just to take care of it today and for a year, but to take care of it for the life cycle of it. Does that make sense? So
Well, that's what I wanted to know.
It
You're
is.
talking about like swimming pools and things
Yes.
like that. And then I'm thinking, okay, this is a 10-year thing. You're talking about possibly a tax
correct.
that you would get people to oppose. So I was wondering if you plan this only for 10 years and what the annual cost would be after that.
We planned it for 20 years.
Oh, it was over 20 years. Thank you.
Right,
That's
that's-
what I need.
But that's theoretical. I mean, we haven't actually written it yet, so that's the next step.
Yeah,
We'll get to that.
those are different steps than these that are planning and trying to, again, identify what is even plausible to you all, the community. So that's what we're trying to get to. So we're gonna get to talk about that next, right, Kristen?
Yes, we are. So John described it a little bit already. I'll just briefly go over what we're going to do. There are 3 tables, and you're sitting at a table now. If you want to move right as we get started and start at a different table, that's fine, but you're going to move through each table eventually.
Actually, what I like to do, sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I want even numbers at all the tables. So,
Okay.
So typically it's kind of like middle school kickball, right? You're going to number off, and so it's the democratic way to do it, right? So what we'll do is we'll go around and we'll number 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so the ones that start here, the 2s that start there, and the 3s that start there. And that way, and so what we'll do is we'll spend 15 minutes at each table dealing with the topic at that table and discussing it as a group. And then get up whenever the buzzer goes off and rotate clockwise so that everybody gets a chance to do all 3 of the tables.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And Brent's going to station at this table, which is the baseline Williford Park and Pool repairs as it is, but some choice points there. And have we forgotten anything?
All the ones are gonna be here, John, is that right? When you count off?
That's 2. One's over here, 2's over there,
Twos.
3's over there.
And
And then we'll
the one
rotate
table is
around.
going to be Williford Park Pool and alternatives, either building on as we go, possibly an alternative scenario, but this is Williford Park and Pool alternative. And the back table is new park, new idea of the things we've talked about, or maybe it could be something else new that you want to insert. But that'll be at that table. And John's going to station that group, and I'll be here at this group.
And part of the reason to do a new kind of raw, I'll explain it a little bit. There's new development happening in Rosamond, and there's developer impact fees, so there will be capital, and so the district can use this opportunity to figure out, from the community, from you all, what you might want to see in a future park that's whatever 5 to 10, whatever. So again, it's very useful for us to understand where you're thinking. It doesn't mean that we're going to try to fund this $6 million park unless you tell us that you think you want a $6 million brand new park, which we're here to listen to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
And each group will select a recorder, and we'll try to get a summary of the ideas at the end. So you want to do the number?
right, and so
Start off?
the comment cards, they're color coded too, and there's a stack of them on each table. So what we'd like for you to do is to fill it out at that table, and then just leave it there. We'll collect them. So you're going to give us your comments on the stuff that you've talked about, your own thoughts at that table. Okay, we'll collect those and we'll make a summary of that. And then the stuff that you're going to be actually making notes on the big pieces of paper as a group. And so you're going to talk about it and think about it and talk with people that are at your table and kind of come together as to what you think as a table it ought to look like. And then you can make comments on the maps from that. So we're going to move pretty quickly because we want you to spend some quality time in each table. So we're going to shoot for 15 minutes. If you're not able to finish at 15, we might go to 20. But that'll take an hour. And then we want to do a summary at the end. So we'll tack up everything that everybody works on the walls. So yeah, you'll get judged. No, I'm not kidding. We're going to evaluate all the results, okay? So that everybody can see what everybody else does. Okay, so we'll do the numbering off, and you give you 1, you'll be a 2, 3, and you'll be a 1, a 2, and then you can be a 3. So remember the number I gave you, right? And you're a 1. Yes. That's here. 2, 3. So you're at the right table. 1, 2, 3. 1, and you're just an observer.
Yes.
Okay. So, and you're a reporter. Okay. So the 2s are here.
Groups, obviously y'all did. And this group and this group, group 1 and 2, basically said that they honestly preferred the no action option. And use the current money to take care of the non-pool part of the park. In other words, use the $112,000 a year you get and take care of everything else, basically shut down the pool and do what you have to. Now, they didn't say who should do that, specifically in the first group. In the second group, they said, take no action, just give it back to the county and trust them to do that. Okay? The third group said they like the baseline, but they think the baseline is more supportable in the community with a more balanced program. In other words, a few things, yes, Wilford, but a few things in other places too. They think that would be more supportable than just doing bring Williford back and take care of it. So that's my roll-up. What about group number 1, which is baseline plus an enhanced version?
Right, and in some cases it turned out into alternate rather than, so the first group that we had, they removed the pool right away, so no pool, and they wanted to put a splash pad there instead. They'd like to explore further options on the price for some of the amenities that they talked about. For example, picnic area. There's some picnic space already there, so maybe take some of the ideas of the picnic area and disperse it, but maybe not that full cost. And then playground, they wondered about options for less cost on that, but they realized that pretty much, and especially for the ADA compliance and things, that was going to have to be completely replaced. Some ideas around programming could happen.
Oh, that's the movie in the park.
That we need more land for that.
Okay.
So figuring out if there's any possibility to extend it all.
All right.
And then can that be done for less too, that one option.
What is that option, Kristen, again?
Movie in the
Movies
park.
in the
maybe?
park.
Movie in the park,
Which
okay.
also, we talked about stars in the park as well. But that one, really important to this group too, is to consider police and safety, because that's come up as a huge existing trouble here. And so consider that as part of, like we're considering programming, we need to consider police and safety.
Okay.
So then the second group talked about, they also got rid of the pool. No, I'm sorry. Second group kept the pool. Kept the pool, but enclosed it. And asked about questions about that, maybe how it's done or the size of that. Added a splash pad where there's a wading pool that used to be running. We also realized that the playground would need to be replaced, so that one was added. And also added the idea that the kids' playground should have some benches with shade for parents to sit and watch kids. So we wondered about price for that, so that question marks are here for that. Talked about the possibility to add the exercise course, maybe throughout the course or maybe at one side. And then also talked about picnic area, maybe enhancing what's there and looking at cost on that. And also considered benches and shade near the courts, so people could watch. Didn't know cost on that, but so people could get more use out of those courts. And the third group, they were another one that got rid of the pool, but instead they got really creative and moved the playground to the front area where the pool is, and put a splash pad where the old wading pool used to be. And then not at the full level of the covered picnic area, but maybe enhancing some of the picnic area that already exists. Talked about reviving exercise course that used to be there, and possibly on that side. Really, really important to this group is to consider a dedicated park staff that could possibly actually staff the park 8 hours a day, and figure out how to do that so that it was 7 days a week. And again, coordinating that dedicated park staff could coordinate with police and sheriff and RCSD maintenance to keep things maintained and keep things safe. That was super important to this group, and it's in 2 notes, and it's here, and that was really emphasized. So that's the roll-up.
Remove the brick wall.
Oh, yes, and this is removing the brick wall so parents can see their kids across, and, you know, if parents are doing exercise, but kids on the playground, anyway, more
That's
open
what that
space.
squiggly line.
That's what the,
Get rid of that thing.
yeah.
All right. Good job. That was nice. Okay, I'm going to show the future park. This is the raw land. 3 different, very different concepts. The first group went with kind of a, sort of like a high adventure kind of a concept. They have the paintball park that takes up sort of half of the land, and then a bike pump track that takes up more or less the other half of it, and then things for all other ages, like the exercise course over here, adjacent to the parking lot that's sort of like centrally located, more or less, and then for little kids, a playground, and then a picnic area. So that's the first group's plan. The second group had all the parking loaded up along the road, and the main focus on this one would be, is the community center, and then a ball field right next to the community center, and then some sport courts over here between the ball field and the parking area, and then sort of like multi-purpose things over here, like a splash pad, the picnic area, and then the playground over here, and then the exercise course here. So a lot of different elements on that site. And on this site, the focal point and the discussion really kind of evolved around a police station, or maybe it'd be a sheriff's substation or something like that. But obviously a security, paid law enforcement essentially. Adjacent to the road, and that's kind of the focal point of it, with the service areas that they need to be able to get their vehicles in and out and all that kind of stuff. And then parking loaded along the street, and more parking over here so it's convenient for the softball field. And then they doubled up the movie in the park with the amphitheater, which makes a lot of sense. You could do it very easily there. And then between the police station and the amphitheater, picnic areas and the top lot, and then a lot of trees and public art. You know, it's just basically like a sculpture garden, if you will. Maybe you have like a community contest, and you know, have to be kind of community built art. Very durable though, you know, like steel or ceramic, that kind of thing, so they can survive outside. And then picnic areas in the tree canopy. And then they wanted lots of trees on the site, so I thought it was a really good idea. And then a restroom over here, so that it's close to the picnic area and the children's playground. So those are the concepts for the new park.
Well, okay, so what's next? These ideas will get further study and kind of refinement a little bit to some degree, because quite frankly, if indeed something were to get voted in here, and there were a change in the fiscal outlook for Parks and Rec, when these parks, even Williford, when they would go to actually spend the money, there'd probably be another little process like this to make sure, show these and make sure that things were moving along. So, but what this helps us do is to bracket this thing and to say, okay, what if we did all these things? What would it cost? And where would that put things? And so that NBS next time has well, if you're going to try to get this much money together, these are the ways that you would move in that direction. These are the kind of options that the community might have, that the board might have to put in front of the community. Anything's going to have to come in front of the community. Nothing could happen without it going before the community. So the next meeting, we're going to look a little bit about the brackets and the options that we look at here established tonight, and then NBS is going to talk to us about kind of how that might work in different funding scenarios, and then we'll talk about where this process goes from there. After the next meeting, it'll go. The board will talk about it a couple times, and if they were to want to go to the community for a vote, there's a process that would have to get established and so forth to be able to move that forward. So we're appreciative of the time you've spent. We're appreciative of your opinions here. I mean, I think we've been pretty open with one another. I appreciate that, and hopefully we've been, honest with you as well. I'm really hoping that you can come back at the next meeting on October 4th and join us for that discussion and help add in more of your thoughts and perspectives on it. Anything to finish up, John?
Just to reiterate, although we brought the substation here for the sheriff, this has nothing to do with Parks and Rec. Okay. But the community still seems like it's not enough. They want more. So for them to get more, they're going to have to go to the county and do their complaints there and try to push the county. Because it seems like even though we've offered them a substation here and a place to stay, it's not their own, and the community wants them to have their own.
I can tell you, folks, that the layers of government can get really confusing. And most people, it's really hard to understand the difference between an RMAC and a CSD and a city and a county, and how the sheriff plays in with, it's a complex kind of setup. And so the best way for any community to move along is to keep talking with one another and not, and I know a number of you come to these meetings and you, at some point in time, you see what they're going through. At other points in time, you wonder, what in the world are they talking about? But honestly, I think you're all trying to work out what this community is going to be. And so, whether it be for public safety or it be for Parks and Recreation, it's important to everyone. And I think you all really care about it. It's just a matter of how you process that. It really makes a difference in the community. So keep talking on those other things too, but your RMAC needs to hear it. That's what RMACs are for. And let me just make a plug for them instead of them, because they can't do anything about your sheriff, amount of sheriff coverage here. An RMAC can at least get in the ear of your county supervisor, who can, provided that person can get 2 other votes generally. So thanks, John, for that. And it is helpful. And again, a few people heard it. Lots more people need to hear it, but it's hard to get the word out. Thank you again for your time, and I really appreciate it. You spent a lot of time with us tonight, and your input really is valuable.
We want to keep track of how many people came. So if you didn't fill out any of these, just make sure before you leave, just fill one of them out, hand it to somebody so that we know who came, and we can follow up with you and invite you to the next one.
Any color?
Any color, doesn't matter.
Just
if you didn't